Happy college football weekend. Along with my co-host TJ Eckert, I am Colby Daniels, and a very special guest this week. It is Oklahoma legend Ryan Broyles joining us as Oklahoma gets ready for their first SEC conference game. Ryan, how are you?
I'm good, man. I'm better now. I get to come here with you guys and talk a little football.
Man, that's what we get to do. Isn't that fun? Like we're getting to hang out here, talk about college football, talk about you playing college football. I relive the glory days a little bit, man. How's that?
Yeah, well, it sounds good to me. You know, as I tell people all the time, it gets better, it gets sweeter with time. You know, I got little boys, get to show some highlights here and there, and you know, it's crazy the things that I did on the field at that time.
Yeah, no doubt.
It's really crazy that your last year was 2011. It doesn't feel like that long has passed, but you still rank in the top 6 all time in college football history in receptions, yards, and touchdowns. Pretty incredible.
It really is. You know, you just go out there and, you know, catch the ball when it comes to you, make the plays when they can, and, you know, you try to score when you can. And over time, quarterbacks get comfortable with you, offensive coordinators, and then, you know, you build a fan base, and it's like, all right, I got to prove something to these guys every day. And then you become a leader on the football team. And, you know, I am happy that my career went the way it did.
Tiger Woods talks about how his kids didn't know about him unless they saw YouTube videos. And that's when they found out, man, Dad was good.
Yeah.
What about your kids?
We're in that same space now. You know, I want to watch some NFL highlights, and my youngest is 4. I want to watch Daddy highlights, and I'm like, we've seen those 1,000 times. But it's special, though. It really is.
Awesome.
Yeah.
You got to keep them on loop for sure.
Yeah.
Oklahoma offensively could use some of your skill set going into SEC play against this Tennessee team. Ryan, I get the question all the time. How do you fix the offense? So you as a fan, I'll ask you, watching this Oklahoma offense early in the season, how do you fix the offense?
Well, we need some big plays. And so I looked at the stat line, and I will say this. We're definitely a balanced offense. And, you know, we had the luxury of having a Lincoln Riley and some Kevin Willis, some masterminds at that offensive coordinator position. And so we kind of got a little spoiled. But, you know, the coaches, they've got to put the best guys on the field, get them prepared to play SEC football. And, you know, we've got to make plays and get guys healthy. There's no excuse not to win at this point and where we are 3-0. But we've got to make plays to keep showing up.
Oklahoma State obviously has a big game coming up against Utah. We'll talk about that in the next block. But with OU, I think this is interesting, your perspective on this. Breaking in Jackson Arnold, his first year starting. You were there when Sam Bradford got hurt, brought in Landry Jones. How much of a transition was that for your offense whenever that happened? Different situation here. Jackson was the known starter coming in, but maybe a tough transition going from an older veteran like a Dylan Gabriel, those guys coming in, bringing in Jackson Arnold. Now you're bringing in Landry Jones. How was that transition? How hard was that?
It was definitely strange. So this was 2009. Sam Bradford went out the first game, BYU, threw in a young Landry Jones, and I was young at the time too. So we were like, "What's going on?" Well, anyway, he built some confidence that first year. We went 8-5, and you know, playing at this level. There are guys across the field that have been playing 3-4 years coming to tackle the quarterback or whatever it might be, cause some headache here and there. So it's not always going to be easy for a young quarterback. But obviously in this situation with Jackson Arnold, he knew he was going to be the starter. Right. He got many reps with the offense during training camp, spring camp. And so now he's got to show up and make the plays when they count.
They got to protect him too, right? I mean, I think they've given up 9 sacks on the season. They are toward the bottom of college football in terms of sacks allowed, and they're about to face a defensive front that gets after the quarterback. So he's a young guy that's coming into his own, but you can't expect him to be superhero if those guys up front aren't doing their job.
Yeah, and as any smart offensive coordinator would do, they would use some of the receivers on some 5-yard routes, which we've seen, some bubble routes, stretching the defense out to make it a little bit easier for the quarterback where that defensive line can't pin their ears back and say, let's go get it. So they've got to be creative with throwing some screens here and there, some quick plays here and there. And obviously, if you get the run game going, that opens things up. And I think where we are now, being in a balanced offense, half passing, half running, we've got to get to some part where we've got a strength and maybe not so much of a strength and go from there.
Sooner defense is going to have a hard time. Josh Heupel's coming back. You excited about that?
I'm very excited.
Yeah?
Coach Hype, you know, he's done his thing. He was here many years ago. He went off to the East Coast, and now he's the head man at Tennessee. So he's got those guys playing well. They played well last year. They're putting up points left and right this year. I will say this: our defense looks better than ever. So I think we'll be in good shape, and obviously the offense has to produce because I think there's going to be some points scored.
I think the defense is going to have their opportunity to perform in this game. Josh Heupel does bring in the #1 scoring offense in the country, and while people, I think, look at Tennessee and think about the big plays in the passing game, it's really what they do on the ground that sets it all up. They're the 3rd leading rushing team in college football.
The game is won on the ground. It really is, yeah.
Is that hard for you to say as a wide receiver?
Well, I'll say it makes your life easier. So when I played, I had DeMarco Murray back there, Chris Brown, Moses Madu, so they didn't know what to do, and then you got some receivers that can run here and there. And so when I played, this was back in Chris Wilson days, we set records, 60-plus points a game over a certain amount of span. So it makes it tough on a defensive coordinator, but you've got to find a strength to throw the defensive mindset off a little bit.
Curious your take on this, Nico. Anyone want to pronounce his last name? You want to try? Okay, we'll go with that. We're going to go home Nico. His first true road start coming into Norman. You know how tough that crowd can be. How big of an impact can that make on an opposing quarterback?
It's huge. I feel like our fan base is great. Obviously we like things to go well.
Sure.
We have a high threshold of performance and the way that things are supposed to look on the field. But I think the buzz going into the SEC, Coach Heupel coming back, a big name team coming here, I think the fans are going to show out, and I think it's going to be a little tougher as long as you can stay in the game. That crowd volume going into the 3rd and 4th should make a difference.
Yeah. We're going to see a jump around game part 2 on Saturday.
I don't know if you can top that one. That was very special. I see that highlight just about every year. But we're going to need that atmosphere. It's going to be a night game. A lot of buzz building up on this. This is our first official SEC game, so I think the fans will be ready.
College game day is in town. It's under the lights, right? It's the first SEC conference game. I think the crowd is going to be pretty rowdy by the time this thing kicks off. All right, that is Ryan Broyles joining us along with TJ Eckert. I'm Colby Daniels. We'll be back in a moment to talk OSU and how they unlock Ollie Gordon against the Utes.
And we welcome you back into the end zone. TJ Eckert, Colby Daniels, Ryan Broyles, Sooner. But we're going to talk about Cowboys. Is that okay with you?
I'm fine with that.
Okay, we can talk a little
we
OSU.
can do that.
Oklahoma State and Utah. Colby, I think that this is arguably, 3 of the best games in the country, and 2 of them are right here in the Sooner State. But OSU deserves a little more credit than they're getting right now.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that this matchup happens to fall on the weekend that Oklahoma hosts Tennessee for their first SEC conference matchup, because this is a great college football game, and I think it, like you said, is easily one of the top 3 matchups of the weekend.
Be curious to see what the Cowboys do against the Utes. Obviously, Utah is a new team coming in the conference. I don't know what experience you had maybe playing against newer teams in leagues. There was expansion that happened during your time in Norman, was there not? I'm trying to remember if there was
I know West Virginia came in just after us.
You? Okay.
Yeah, but I think we kind of had our setup when I was playing from 08 to 11.
What's a good atmosphere at OSU look like? I know you played in some Bedlam games.
Yeah, they're amazing, and I will say this: that stadium feels like it's right on top of you. Those fans, they remind me of the Texas Tech fans. They're going to be relentless. If you're on that visiting sideline, they're going to be relentless back there. So the opposing team will definitely have some things to deal with on the sideline.
You ever get hit by a paddle?
Never paddle, yeah.
That's good.
Never paddle.
They're really close to you. Colby, we want to talk about Ollie Gordon, right?
Of course.
How do the folks get him going?
That's my big question, right? I mean, it was the first 3 games of last year where everybody was asking the question, where's Ollie Gordon? And then he broke out against Kansas State on a Friday night when everybody was writing the Pokes off. I don't know that anybody's writing Oklahoma State off at this point, but Ollie Gordon's got to get going if they're going to reach their ceiling. And my question to Ryan is, I mean, you had a really incredible 2010 year, right? And 2011, I'm sure that people game planned more for you. How does Oklahoma State get around that? Because last year, Ollie Gordon caught people by surprise. This year, everyone is game planning to stop him.
Yeah, well, if you load the box, it's definitely tougher. I don't even care if it's an elite running back. But like I mentioned earlier, the offense coordinator has to get creative. I don't know much about the OSU offense, but years in past, they were high-powered offenses. They had guys on the outside, guys on the inside, and the quarterback was pretty mobile too, and he can do some things. But yeah, you want to continue to feed him. It's still early in the season. Some teams don't peak 3-4 games in, and so you got to gel and figure some things out, and there might be some swapping here and there on the offensive line. But yeah, you got to keep pounding an all-star and keep giving him the ball.
The thing for me is their teams are making Alan Bowman beat them. So far, Alan Bowman in the passing game has beaten them, right? So if you can continue to do that, that is how you open up and get Ollie Gordon going, is continuing to prove that Bowman, Brennan Presley, Rashad Owens, all these guys can make plays, and I think that's how you end up getting Ollie Gordon more involved. Defensively, Cowboys have a tougher test, but an interesting one because we don't know if Cam Rising is going to play. It sounds like he is. Maybe he won't.
Well, he is. He's not.
Right,
he is. He's not. This week has kind of been
a
hokey pokey, right? Of Cam Rising. Will he play or will he not?
Yeah, I don't know what's going to happen there. So that'll be a key thing I think for the Cowboy defense is if Cam Rising is playing. It's obviously a much tougher test. The backup is Zach Wilson's brother, which is interesting.
And he's a freshman.
Yeah, so that would be a fun matchup there too. But got to limit big plays, I think, if you're Brian Noto's defense, something they haven't really done a good job of.
Yeah, they have struggled in that department. They are one of the worst teams in college football at giving up big plays. However, they've been really good in the red zone, right? They've forced turnovers. They've limited teams to maybe kicking field goals when they do get the ball inside the red zone. So we'll see if that can continue. Utah wants to play a ball control brand of football, so I don't know how explosive they'll be, but they are very methodical.
It'd be interesting to see how that matchup ends up playing out with OSU's defense against Utah's offense. You mentioned them kind of being a little more methodical. We're going to make our picks on that game. We'll see if Ryan sticks to his Sooner roots and goes against the Pokes or not. I guess you have to wait and see.
We'll see.
We'll see what happens there. We're going to move the chains, though, when we're coming back. Stay with us here on the End Zone.
And welcome back to the End Zone. It is time for Moving the Chain, something Ryan Broyles did a lot of in his time at Oklahoma. All right, so the goal here is we're going to ask you questions. You start with 1st and 10. You answer the questions. We will judge how well or how not well you answered these questions, and you may either gain yardage or lose yardage. But you got to move the chains, Ryan. That is the goal
go forward, yeah.
in this segment. So 1st and 10, my question to you. Big game on Saturday, right? College game day is in town. First SEC conference matchup for the Sooners. Why is this game on Saturday night in Norman the biggest game in Norman over the last 25 years?
Now, I can't say it's the biggest game, but let's just start here. I do believe this is the biggest game going forward for how OU is going to present themselves in the SEC. So we've had a lot of big games here. We've had game days in the past. We had the jump around game, Texas Tech, teams ranked. We had a lot of good football up to this point, but I do think this is going to be a good start for us.
Okay, you mentioned moving forward. That's what we're going to do with this. So you got 5 yards there.
5.
Okay? 2nd and 5.
Whoa,
It's a manageable
what a
segment.
generous
It was a
judge
great
over
answer.
there.
It was
Okay,
good. I thought
okay.
it was a good
Okay.
answer. Yeah, I agree. Okay, 2nd and 5.
That's better than the Sooners have done on first down
Yeah, it's
recently.
much better.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
So here's my question: is people are nervous about Brent Venables right now? It's like, man, it didn't have a great start year 1, year 2 looked okay, year 3 they're a little nervous about the offense. You tell me, why is Brent Venables the right guy for the job right now for OU?
Well, he's played in big games and he's produced on the defense side of the ball. And obviously we can see that our defense now is the top of the nation in a lot of areas.
Sure.
And that's what we've been wanting and wanting for so many years as an OU fan. And now we have it. Now, can we put the pieces together on offense and make things flow correctly? That's still to be seen. But I think Brent V is the guy. He brings good motivation. He's a family-oriented guy. And he's got those guys bought in.
Love it.
Okay, there was some question about whether the right offensive pieces are there, which does impact Brent Venables. So I'll say you got a 1-yard gain, and we're setting up for 3rd and 4.
Third and
That's
manageable.
manageable.
I mean, 3rd and manageable.
Yeah,
Yeah, you're not behind the
that.
chains
Yes.
by any means. All right, 3rd and manageable. Why will Oklahoma State win the Big 12? Them and Utah are among the favorites, obviously, to win the league if you go based off of Vegas odds.
Well, I guess we just start here. OU's not in the Big 12, right? So I think that gives me at least 4 yards there. So I think that's a thing. And then obviously,
might have done
OU's out the picture now. It's a fresh start for OSU. They're not the stepchild anymore. They've had good teams. They obviously have got a good coach. Now they got to put the pieces together. You've got new teams coming into the Big 12, but I think OSU's shown their worth over the years and over the last few games. So that's worth 4 yards, right?
Okay, so they're going to have to bring the chains out to measure. It looks like you're just short, 4th and inches. So we got to get to one more.
Hey, we're not scared
we
with
got
that.
we got to get to one more. Here's an interesting one. Is there any receiver current or maybe recent years that reminds you that OU's had? Anybody that's like, man, that guy reminds me of how I played when I was there. Anybody? Or are you your own breed?
Man, I just caught the ball and I ran. But I played with passion. I played with this is my last down in this uniform, like a Mark Clayton. We had a Jalen Saunders, Sterling Shepard, Dede, some guys to stretch the field. We've had a lot of great players here, so I'm not just going to put myself aside. OU's had players.
Okay, I like that.
They've had players.
Are we going to get another receiver to wear an 80s number? anytime
Those
soon?
days might be gone. I was 85, Chad Johnson 85 back in the day.
Yeah.
So maybe some of these young cats coming up are looking at these older players with bigger numbers, but now the guys are wearing small numbers, so that might be
Fair enough.
That
All
might be
right.
what it is.
You know what? He was hitting the backfield, but he broke a tackle. He
Let's
leaned
go.
forward
Come on
and
now. Quarterback sneak.
first down, baby.
Quarterback
First
sneak.
down
There
for
you go.
Ryan
That one,
Broyles
Ryan. I love
here
it.
on this edition of Moving the Chains. All right, we'll take our final timeout. Game picks next here on the End Zone. Along with TJ Eckert, I am Colby Daniels. For the final time, we say hello, and Ryan Broyles is our guest as we make game picks heading into a gigantic weekend with the eyes of the college football watching country on the state of Oklahoma. Obviously, game day in Norman on Saturday morning, kickoff under the lights. Oklahoma State also hosting the top 25 conference opponent. It is a gigantic weekend, and as we make game picks, let's begin with one that is a late start Saturday night. That is Kansas State on the road against BYU. The Wildcats are a 6.5 point favorite.
Yeah, so I'm going to roll with the Wildcats. I'm a big Chris Kleiman guy. I do think BYU is tough to play at. It's like a 9:30 kick or something.
That's right.
Yeah, it's late
game.
But give me KSU in that one, Ryan.
Yeah, I've got Kansas State as well. They've always been well coached ever since my days playing here at OU. Obviously, it's a away game for them, but I think they get it done.
This is OSU's next opponent in Kansas State. I think they get this one done and set up for a gigantic matchup next weekend for the Cowboys. All right, game number 2 of this weekend, we have a former Oklahoma State opponent this season and OU's next opponent, which is Auburn hosting Arkansas. TJ, Auburn is a 3-point favorite at home.
A lot of the talk in the offseason was that Auburn, Jordan-Hare is one of the toughest places to play in the country. Cal went there and beat Auburn a few weeks ago. Arkansas is a really talented team, but they're finding ways to lose games, and you can't do that on the road. So I think Auburn ends up covering that one.
So I've got Arkansas on this one here. I could be a bit biased. I got recruited by Arkansas. They're not too far from here, but I've got Arkansas winning this
I
one.
like that.
I like that Arkansas quarterback. I think they are explosive offensively. Give me Pig Suey plus the 3 on the road. All right, game number 3 of this weekend, USC at Michigan. This is now a Big Ten matchup, which is crazy to think. But Lincoln Riley is headed to Ann Arbor and goes into Ann Arbor as a favorite. Who would have thought?
Yeah, crazy. USC goes to Maryland later in the year, which is bizarre to me, coast to coast in the Big Ten there. I think the Trojans are coming off a bye week. I know that. Michigan coming off a tough loss. I think that USC finds a way to cover there in the Big House. Not necessarily because of them, but because I don't think Michigan's as good as people think.
Yeah, Michigan is definitely down this year. First-time head coach, former OU athlete. I do have Michigan this game. A bit biased here as well, but I think Michigan has the players.
That's okay.
They've got the moxie to get this one done.
Is that biased for Michigan or against USC?
Against USC.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
That's obvious.
Listen, people are writing Michigan off because Texas went in there and beat them. I think Texas could match them in both physicality and out-athlete them. USC might out-athlete them, but I don't know that they can out-physical Michigan, so give me the Wolverines at home. All right, the big matchup in Stillwater, 3 o'clock start on Saturday. Undefeated 3-0 Utah, undefeated 3-0 Oklahoma State. TJ, what do you got?
This line keeps moving back and forth, back and forth. I think OSU at home is the most important thing in this matchup. I think if it was in Utah, I'd probably lean towards the Utes, but give me the Pokes there in Stillwater.
Yeah, so I second that as well. OSU at home versus a good Utah team. OSU, like we mentioned earlier, OSU's out the picture now, so it's a fresh start for those guys to get it done.
Yeah.
So when we locked this game earlier in the week, it was Oklahoma State getting points, and Cam Rising was expected to play. If they have Cam Rising, I'm picking Utah. If he's not playing, I'm picking the Cowboys. It's as simple as that. I do think it's a great matchup, but when we locked this, Cam Rising was playing, so give me Utah minus the 2. All right, finally, Oklahoma, Tennessee. It's the biggest game in the country this weekend. TJ, what do you got as the Sooners are the biggest underdogs on their home field in, 30 years?
1998, I believe, was the latest that it was. Why not give me the Sooners, right? Maybe the return of Sooner magic. They need a little magic, I think. Tennessee, maybe a little overrated with how they've played against really easy competition. I think OU welcomes Josh Heupel back to Norman in a good way.
Yeah, so I second that as well. OU, obviously, there are a lot of red flags, but a home game, under the lights, game day here in Norman, you cannot bet against it.
I want to go with you guys, but I don't think I can do it. The number one scoring offense in the country and a really good defense as well. I think Tennessee maybe spoils Oklahoma's welcome party to the SEC. And I do think it's going to be a great game. I just have my doubts about the offense giving the defense a chance to really pull this one out. Ryan, you got to come back, man. This has been a blast.
Man, I enjoyed it. Thanks
Appreciate
for having me.
Ryan. Yeah, man, a lot of fun.
Sure. Good
A lot of
times.
fun.
That's TJ Eckert. I'm Colby Daniels. Everybody have a great college football weekend.